Hello everyone and welcome back once again. I know that it's been quite a while since our last video, but let's just say it's been a hell of a couple of months. This is actually a commission for my buddy Adam. This is his car, Pandora. Now, if you're wondering why I just showed you the car in the package, well, that's because this is one of the ones that I lost a few months ago. This build's going to be just a little different than most of the other ones that I've done. Before I explain what I mean by that, let me just say that I got this car torn all the way down to where I removed the interceptor light. Of course, that'll have to be filled in, but what do you say we get started? While I'm filling the hole in the roof, let me explain what I meant by a different kind of build. You see, this is one of those rare opportunities where we actually get the car before the car is done. Both Adam and I thought it would be a cool video series if we followed the build from beginning to end. We're going to do that in stages, and this is stage 1. By the end of the video, the car will look the way that it did when Adam got it. At least, that's the plan. There is an advantage, I guess, to not having to watch me tear it down. We pretty much get to move immediately onto paint, so there you go. Now you'll see that I'm gently trying to sand off the excess body filler on the roof. I'm not entirely sure why Greenlight decided to make this a plastic roof, but fail. I mean, don't get me wrong, it looks right when it's painted or whatever, but man, it sure made it a little more difficult for modification. Plus, without removable glass on it, you have to paint it all by hand. Oh well, first world problems, I guess. Yeah, that doesn't look terrible. What do you say we move on to seeing what we can do about the interior? Also, I need to work on figuring out the frame. Now, my original thought for the interior was that I'd just cut out the seats and stick everything back together. You'll see in a few minutes why that won't work. The frame, however, was a bit more complicated. I'll get to that in a couple of minutes as well. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Honestly though, even though it was a rolling chassis when Adam got it, I think we're going to move just a little further in and remove the suspension and stuff. Which means that I'll have to take it down to the 1/64 scale frame as well. Now, I didn't think about it when I got this model, but there's no dashboard or interior in this car at all, so out it goes. You'll see here that I cut out the seats, but man, it just didn't work out. The plastic on this interior is just too thick. Regardless, I think it's still important to show you the process. You know, everything's a learning curve, right? Right about here is when I started formulating a plan as far as a 3D print. That said though, the interior is actually metal as well, so I figured I might as well paint it and see how it looked. Spoiler alert, it looked terrible. Let's move on to Tinkercad and see what we can do about printing an interior and a frame for it, and see if we can make it look a little more realistic. Yeah, that actually looks kind of cool. It's definitely not quite right yet, but you can actually see the progression here, right? Now, for the end of the video on the glamour shots, I plan on putting this on a rotisserie. This was another Adam contribution. He went out to his shop and measured the rotisserie exactly so that I could 3D print one. And of course, the final major body modification is going to have to be that I cut out the core support and this engine bay. The frame is definitely not finished, but I'm trying to get some visuals to make sure that I get the right measurements the second time around. While I let that stew, I'm going to cut out the core support and the engine bay. I'll also have to drill out the headlights because, well, it doesn't have headlights. You'll notice that I'm holding the body with a pair of vice grips. It may be 1/64 scale, but the heat is real. The headlights turned out to be the biggest chore on this, and I'm not entirely sure why. Maybe it's because they're domed and I'm trying to grind it out with a ball. Yeah, you can see right here that the front end of the frame is just way too low. I'm going to have to reprint that to where the front end of the frame actually meets up with the bottom of the fender wells. Aside from that though, I'm pretty satisfied. I thought it might be fun to show you the progression of how I got to the finished frame and interior. See, quite a difference between those two. But Vic, you might ask, why didn't you just use the frame that came with the car? To that I say, it's pretty difficult to grind a frame out of a Zamac casting. By the time I got done, it was so flimsy it wouldn't have worked at all. So, another answer might be, I tried, and it wasn't any good. Regardless, I am much more satisfied with this frame, so let's get it onto paint and get it finished up. I'll get everything reassembled once it's dry, but what do you say we get onto the glamour shots?